Okay, we're going to open the Village of Wappingers Falls Water Board meeting for Monday, April 12th. Anybody normally take roll call?
I got it jotted down.
Okay.
Yeah, I already got it.
Okay, good. All right, I am hearing that there is an interest in my becoming chair in Pat's absence. I'm going to suggest that at least for today, I temporarily run the meeting if everyone's on board with that, and then we can have an upward discussion after.
But I think you are the chair.
By the end of the meeting, you will be.
Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make that. Second.
And we have a motion to pay bills as presented.
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Okay, motion passed. Water Department report, Prospect South Missouri backyard water and sewer replacement. Where are we at with this? Does anybody have any idea?
Was the letter ever sent to the 5 homeowners?
We sent the letter to Craig Wallace, who then seems to want to now start researching it all over again. So he wants to pull the deeds and see if there's an existing easement, and here we are. So the letters are in his hands. We're waiting for him to do something with them.
John, not to raise another question that goes along with it, but do we have any idea if any of the turnoff procedures or anything would link into any of the latest public service commission's issues with turning people's water off or dunning them in any way because of COVID restrictions?
Because they're not tenants, they're all homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't come into play unless there is a rental in there. Then you can't turn a rental off.
Okay. All right. So at least that's not another issue. All right. I have no problem following up with Craig Wallace if everybody's okay with that, just to get us so that we're not waiting until next month for another status report.
Sounds good.
See if I can
So
follow.
just so the board is aware of it, Craig wants to go in a different direction than the board does.
I'm well aware he wants to go in different.
Yeah, so I don't know how you feel about
Can
that.
you share?
I could. So Craig actually spoke to me, and his position is he would rather receive easements or an attempt to receive easements, including the gentleman on the corner, which was the only one that was holding the easements up.
Right.
So if that is the case, the village would be basically buying an old pipe, and if it's their intent to run new pipe, it would be at the cost of the village. And that's his current position. The last time I spoke with him, he wanted to physically meet, I believe, with John or KC Engineering to physically review the aspects of the layout of the land and exactly what we were talking about in regards to where the existing water and sewer is. And that's the last time I heard from him, probably 2 weeks ago.
Does he have the history of the prior refusal of the easement?
He is aware that the gentleman on the corner, from my understanding, was not accepting an easement.
Do we have the written refusal or is it just verbal refusal?
I believe it was my understanding that it was a verbal
Okay. So,
via Matt.
okay. What I'm concerned about is incurring a huge repeat bill of work that's already been done and spending hours and hours on doing the same work over and over again. So, I mean, a couple way to go and turn somebody off and we can see what the cost is. I don't have a problem with him sending a letter to the, property owner pursuing easement for that one to get a written refusal so that we know exactly where we stand with him rather than a verbal. But I will give him a call and I will send an email out to the board and Casey Engineering once I get the updated information from him. John, if that's okay with you?
No, that would be good because he did go off in a different direction than what we had asked him to do. So we had asked him just to review the letters and that we wanted to send shutoff notices, and he wants to now start pursuing the easements again after it's been over a year now. So
Okay, that's really the same as it was before, not any faster?
To my knowledge, yes. We haven't gotten any complaints that people do not have enough water to, flush your toilet, but it's just a matter of time. So the history has been, a leak starts and it gets worse over time to the point where they're just not gonna have water. And then, we have to decide at that point, if that was the case, what do we do?
John, when did you speak to him?
He called me up the 23rd saying that I sent him the map and tried to explain to him what we were trying to do. And that's
Okay.
and then I received an email. I thought everybody was copied on it earlier, I think this week or last week.
It was today, I think.
Was it today?
Yeah, I think this afternoon.
From Craig.
It's actually 125.
Yeah, he wanted to spend like $350.
Oh yeah, that one. But there was one before that. There was one before that, I believe. Where there's the 3.5. Yeah, I don't know where it is at the moment, but yeah, I've been trying to redirect his attention to chasing the we prepared the letters because we couldn't get the easements, and we're trying to force them. Do we really want this as part of our system? This old pipe?
Yeah. Well,
So, and I don't think Craig understood that.
yeah. I hate to keep putting the burden on you too, John. I think that and we can talk about this after, but I think what I'd like to see is anytime we have the attorney doing something, acting on our behalf, my understanding is he is on somewhat of a retainer, so to speak, every month. It would be nice if he's doing something on our behalf that he prepares a report, even if it's a short one, for each meeting to tell us exactly where he's at as
That's
well.
something you'd need to communicate with him.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand that. I just, I want to make sure the process doesn't get slowed up. I want to make sure he stays on top of it. So maybe requiring something like that will keep him on his toes. All right, so I will pursue that with him. That then also takes care of 8C down below, the status of the letter, correct? Because it's still with Craig.
Yeah, it's still with Craig.
Okay. Water chairman report. I don't believe we have anything, I have anything to report right now, other than we will continue to go through the other pieces and I will add any information I have as we go along. Operations report review.
If anybody has any comments, be happy to answer. Otherwise, we did pretty good this month at 464,000 gallons a day. Down from the previous month.
Also, just so you guys know, in a couple of weeks, we're going to start our spring flushing of all the hydrants.
Do we normally have any problems when you do flushing in spring?
Sometimes we get some complaints, stirring up some water. We resolve it. The best that we can. Just more flushing.
And the flushing itself will go into the papers. Heather will put it on the village's website,
Okay.
just so people have, an idea as to
Right.
what we're doing.
Have we ever done anything like post signs throughout the village when it's being done physically? Okay.
I've seen in Poughkeepsie that they drive around with the truck. The truck that they're in has a sign saying flushing in progress. But I don't know where they got that sign. They probably made it.
I know,
Even then, it's
typically-
blatantly obvious we're flushing on hydrants.
Yeah.
So
They should be aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
usually.
Who do you
I
think?
mean, if it's something that you think, we should do, we're certainly not opposed to it at
Just-
all.
As long as people are aware, because I think we're at a stage right now where, people aren't reading the paper regularly. There are very few people that get the paper anymore. And just because of the older community, I'm not sure they're going looking. I mean, in order to find out that you're flushing, they have to go to the the site. If they don't know that there's something going on, to go to the site and look for it, how do they know? So I was just curious as to whether there was, I was thinking, you know, the mailer that goes out for the bill in the spring could say, you know, between weeks X and Y, be aware that the water department's going to be flushing.
I thought Marie did that.
Does she?
Oh, no, she puts it in the paper.
Yeah, I definitely know she puts it.
Yeah, all right. Close enough.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those avenues are things that people have to think and know to look for. If they're not looking for it, they're not going to see it. So, you know, I was trying to think of a very small way to give them something like in the bill that they get, you know, in that time frame that would give them some sense. And it doesn't have to be a lockdown. It could be anything from April 1st to April 30th.
In regards to the billing, John, correct me if I'm wrong, right? You took a reading in March.
Yeah, so they just went out, we just missed it.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
We just missed it by about 2 weeks.
No,
Not even.
I think it's a.
No, it's a great idea, but we just
It
missed it.
really is. Absolutely. If we could coordinate it, you know,
Right.
that's.
Just make up 1,500 flyers
Yeah.
and pack them in the envelope.
Well, they do it for other things, recreation,
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, I think it could be done, sure. It's just a matter of the timing wise, you know, we usually do it April and October,
Okay.
and, you know, we have to, in order to do
We have
that.
to make a date before that. Yeah. That's our problem, it's not. to make a
Yes,
date.
yes, exactly.
Well, even if you don't pick a date, even if you give them a month time span and say somewhere between April 1st and April 30th, we're going to be doing
Please be
this.
aware.
Please be aware, go to the village website at that time to find
great
out more
thought.
specific information.
That's the thought.
Anything else?
Did Lane have anything to add?
Who?
Lane? When Dave was down recently?
Not really. I mean, there's a bunch of information that was given to everybody about the condition of the well that we just cleaned.
I didn't know if they made a report or anything.
Not really, you know, just,
The
you
motors.
know, we're gonna be changing that motor out for the other well. It's, you know, has bearing issues and it's leaking a little bit of oil. But, you know, we already sent the other motor out for reconditioning. Once that one gets done, we'll have you install that one and then we'll remove the one that's existing now and redo that one. So it's ready to go.
Okay.
As a backup.
Great. So anybody have any questions on the operations report? All right, I'm going to ask that we move item number 7 to the end of the meeting and keep moving through the other items. So 8A, status of fire line.
I think we're gonna have to ask John on that one. Yeah, that's done.
John?
Fire line, state home.
Oh, that should be up and running at this point. I haven't seen anything from the engineer yet, but I'll just say that they still haven't sent us the results.
So then my question becomes, how did the water get turned on after all those difficult issues that we had at the last board meeting and everybody knew that the water.
Is the water turned on, Ken?
We definitely didn't turn it
I don't
on.
think
That I can tell you, so.
I don't know that it's turned on yet. They
it-
shouldn't have turned it on themselves. We told them that.
They got 2 mains in that house now?
Well, they have a service line, a 3/4 inch copper line, and then now they have the fire line.
Well, they
I don't think
always had the 3/4 inch copper line that they didn't touch. It's the fire line that we don't know whether or not that's active or not.
Because they have to set up the whole system.
Don't they follow that up with Brian?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, because when I discussed it with Ryan, he said he has no control over that building.
Oh, that's right. It's a state building, so it's a state fire.
So we'll get done for 3 years, 4 years.
All right, I'll reach out to them again, see if I can get an answer from whether or not, when they plan on needing the line. I'll make it sound like they shouldn't have turned it on yet and ask them when they will need it turned on.
I mean, after what we went through, I would hope they didn't. If they
Right.
did, it's, I mean,
Is there anything in our laws that if you turn off or a non-oil water, that you have a fine to pay, or?
I think there is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
There is.
And if it's on, we should hold them liable.
You're not supposed to touch our valve,
Definitely. I mean, I believe there is. Do you believe there is?
but I don't think they did.
And I think we should
Because
pay
when,
attention to stuff.
the last I was in there, which was a month ago, there was,
Yeah.
there was no pipe.
Well, they must.
Yeah, they have to build the sprinkler system first before they can do anything.
They have to build the sprinkler system, period. So when I was in there, it was just a stub and check valves, and that was it.
Right.
But no check valve, which I don't even know is,
And
probably
that-
wasn't inspected yet because they
That,
don't
that's
have water.
meter board,
Right,
correct?
we need a certification of works from them that the check valve has been inspected and meets all the design requirements of the approved
Correct.
plans from the health department. And without that, we can't turn the valve, and they should better have not turned the valve.
Right, and, you know, they have to have that report sent over to your office with the,
Right.
you know, compliance for the chlorination, the pressure test.
I mean, did they pass the chlorination and the pressure test?
We're assuming we didn't get that yet either.
I haven't seen it.
I'll call Bill right now.
You guys haven't witnessed the pressure test or chlorination, John?
We witnessed all of that, yes. We witnessed it. We just haven't seen the results that the line, once they flushed it, met health standards.
But it passed the pressure test?
Yeah, they passed the pressure test, yes. It's a short line. I'd be surprised if they had screwed it up that bad. So, I mean, usually pressure tests fail because there's air in the line somewhere, but this was a short line. So. But I'll reach out to them again, get that.
Thank you. Status of filter. Who's addressing the status of the filter?
You mean the filter plant,
I just have status of filter, so, yep, good.
John?
Okay, so the filter plant, we're just going through final round of, is that the filter plant or the next one? What are you on?
B.
Oh, status
8B.
of filter. Okay, B. Yeah, so I want to set up a meeting with Kenny and John to go over the layout of the plant and the hydraulic grade line, just make sure you guys are comfortable with it before we send it into the health department. So I'll reach out to you, Kenny, probably a little later this week or early next week to find a time that works for you guys.
All right.
Is there any way you can email to the water board, the plans for that?
I can once they're done if you want to see them, certainly. They're just going through the last markups and changes right now. So we're nearly done.
We'll be 100% done then?
Yeah, and we'll be ready to go. Shovel ready.
But we gotta save some budget for health department comments.
Yeah, we have a little bit in case the health department has comments. We have a little bit to address them.
So when it goes through all that,
Then you're
when are we
100%.
looking to start this project?
That depends on budgeting. The village, the water board authorized 100% design, which we're working on that. We want the water board's A-OK for us to send it into the health department. That hasn't been discussed yet. So presumably today you'll tell us that if Ken and John are good with it, then we'll go to the health department for design review. And then next steps from there, it's up to you. We're only authorized as far as 100% design. But bidding and construction would be the next steps. What's the funding?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask next.
Yeah.
What's the status of these grants?
That would be the Cory question.
So we have resubmitted to the USDA and we have not heard back from them yet as to if they need any further information or if we're going to get anything from them. We are going after there's this new grant program out through the Congressman Maloney.
Yeah.
For an earmark where we're asking for $1 million through that as well toward the filter plant. So we've just, in fact, I was working with Corey this afternoon to pull that together for the grant application.
Is that the limit? Is that the limit?
For the earmark is 1 million, yes. The earmark is 1 million is the limit, which is the one that's due sooner.
But at 90%, what are we looking at as a cost right now?
Well, our cost estimate had been around 1.5 million, but I think we need to revisit that because of metal or steel prices right now have gone way up, and we are proposing a steel building, so we might have to revisit that if the building price gets too crazy. But again, this is we were at 1.5 million. I told Corey to say that it was going to be 2 million just for the grant because there were matching funds that were
Okay.
associated with that. Just it said ask for 2 million or say it's 2 million because of the metal price. The steel right now is through the roof. So
And is there a second grant that's being worked on? I'm not sure.
the second grant is a $3 million one, and that's we're doing that for Tri-Muni, unfortunately, guys. So, or that was my direction, and that would be Tri-Muni.
Okay.
Trying to get that outlet repaired or upgraded. So
Okay.
there's that, and they're both very, very competitive. So if we ask for, I don't know that we can ask for both Tri-Muni and for, at the 3 million and for the money for the filter plant from the same municipality. And
yeah. That Tri-Muni gets complicated because
it's
there
3.
aren't 3. It's 3 million,
2.
but there aren't 3 others.
Right. All 3 municipalities would have to ask for a grant to pay for their funded portion of the upgrade based on the allocated flow.
But I'm not sure that, Corey wasn't, and we don't need to get into that too much today, but Corey was checking to see if the town of Wappinger could actually ask for funds to go into a plant that they don't own or a facility that they have no ownership rights.
Well, we also, talking to Corey about that as well. I mean, if all 3 municipalities ask for $3 million in such a competitive market, probably they're not all going to get it. So, and then what? So I think we're asking for 3 million. The villages toward the Tri-Muni.
Okay.
Now, John, I remember that Jason had asked a question quite a while ago in regards to whether or not KC has ever designed a green sand filter before. And your answer was yes, and he had asked if it's possible if they could go visit the plant. Is that still something we could do?
Did you ask me or John Bolger? Ask me. Okay. Well, I have not chased that down yet, so sorry. I can do that. Sorry. So.
All right. Yeah. If you could do that, I think I would, equally have interest in seeing the plant as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I have to talk to John Bolger about what plants are nearby. So I'll get back to you. I'm sorry. I didn't do that yet because I was working on the filter plant.
Anybody have anything else on the filtration?
No.
Who gets to tackle item D? Nancy, you or John?
I'd like to touch base on that. Is that okay with you, John?
Yep, you can take the lead from here.
Okay. Okay, and I'll probably need help. But Dan Keeler has set up a compliance meeting for this Friday at 10 in the morning on Teams. He sent out an invitation to Rick Serino, Kevin Huber, Pat Chase, Ken Cruzy, John Kozak, Pete Podgy, Nancy Clark, and John Zarowski. I will make sure I forward that to you, Mary, so that you have the connection information forward to Mary. And, the village can bring whoever is appropriate to be there. It's imperative that the village be at the meeting. And, I'm curious to know if Rick Serino is going to be there, but none of us have been able to ask. So I suppose you'll you know,
We'll find out.
track that.
Yeah.
Okay. As you know, in August of 19, the health department in their annual inspection, they asked for the village to provide a timeline by the end of that year for compliance related to well 3 not being in regular service. And then a year later or so, there was a annual health department meeting to discuss compliance, and the health department wrote a follow-up letter from them to the village. And that letter identified violation where Dan Keeler wrote it as 5-1.91B, failure to operate in accordance with the design approval. So,
Can I stop here? Or-
Yeah.
Okay, so in regards to 5-191B,
yeah,
I'm
I'm
not-
just
I'm not
quoting
seeing-
from his letter.
yeah, I don't see that, well, you know what, man, take a look at it and see what you think. I mean, to me,
I didn't
I'm
look
not
up,
sure
I didn't look up.
5-1.91B, and I don't see anything about failure to operate in accordance with the design approval. So I was a little confused by that.
Well, I was just quoting from his letter. I
Yep,
didn't check his
understand.
citation, but the general gist of it is, he's saying that the village has well 7 and 7A, and you have well 3. By approval, you're supposed to have the 2 acting wells. 7 and 7A are mechanical backup to each other, and he realizes that well 3 is not in service, so he's saying, village, what are you gonna do?
Right.
So that, whether his citation is typed wrong, I don't
Yeah,
know. But
that's
that-
okay, I was just,
but the general gist of it, does that make sense?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
yes,
so,
yes.
so with the general gist of it, he realizes that the village has a water interconnection agreement with the town of Wappingers. That agreement, it took years for the village to negotiate with the town to achieve that agreement. It was signed in July of 2019, and words taken directly from the agreement, it establishes mechanisms and procedures for which the village will obtain water. And the quote there, to enable the village to better respond in case of fire or other emergency, to perform maintenance on its existing water tanks, and to transmit water to Woodhill Green condos and other properties located in the town outside of the village in the future. So those examples there were negotiated directly between village leaders and town leaders. There was, they point to issues within the distribution system. And
So can I comment on that? Or do
Sure.
you have- So I'm very confused as to how there was an agreement made when the water board is not informed of it, to my knowledge, correct? Okay, and Mary, you obviously weren't here, that there was never any discussion with the superintendent, there was never any discussion with the operators. How could there be an agreement made when we knew that well 3 was offline? How could there be an agreement to give water to Woodhill Green when we don't even know if we have enough water to do it?
I would-
mean, it's,
I would think that question would need to go to people that aren't in this room. You know, we weren't the negotiators. KC was not the negotiator. It was village leaders. And
So-
KC is aware of the agreement, but we weren't at the table either.
so where is the agreement? Where is it?
So the village board made this decision.
The village leaders, the village board authorized that it be approved, and the agreement, I don't think I brought it with you.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
I don't recall.
Say that one more time.
Someone negotiated on behalf of the village of Wappingers Falls, and an agreement exists. And depending upon
You
the
don't think-
agreement, we
So
might,
who has
Well,
the
somebody can
agreement?
come up with
Because
it.
John Carge
It's an email
doesn't
to
have
you.
it.
it's an email to me, so let's.
Do you
have
have
it.
it? I would love to
I
see.
sent
I'm
it
gonna have
to
a
you.
copy.
Whose
It's the
signature is
last,
on?
it's the,
Because I've never.
When that person's not in office anymore, does that
It's-
increase the
it's-
expense?
it's Matt.
Confusing to me as to how something can get done when you don't talk to the people.
The more fascinating thing is that the operators of the town of Lavender say the same thing. You can't do water.
Then why do you know that?
I don't know why it is.
Cost update, schedule.
If it isn't gonna
It's the
benefit
last
the village,
step.
then let's not do it at all.
It seems like it was just all
The
power.
way this whole thing was explained to me was, it was supposed to be like the town of Poughkeepsie, an emergency basis.
Yep.
That's the way it was explained to me. And it would help us out in future grants. during
This
water.
agreement is dated
Because you're
24th
working
July
with
2019.
town's authority,
by
the
between
town's
Village
itself.
Wappingers Falls
I get that, but
and town.
if you
If
ain't
you
got
go
it,
to the bottom, you'll see Matt's signature
Well, my
and Jim
thing is
Thurston's
this.
signature.
We already have a connection, that's all.
right. Oh, wait,
But
It would cost us fully functional.
And
It
you have
doesn't
somebody
cost
that-
us a dime to turn it on.
Looking to negotiate with us, that's what I've been telling Kevin.
It's a negotiation tool for us also.
Yeah, I get that, but we could always negotiate with the town and get all the water we need. That's how we used to do it.
Right.
Why are we spending?
But if you got somebody cheaper on this end down
It is
here,
signed
and
by
they're
the
charging more
town
here.
supervisor and mayor at that time. What is not
Is there any
here.
mention of an amount of water there
for the price.
or a price?
What,
Those are two things you would think in a.
Right. Right.
The towns are working together before.
Warehouses.
So.
I mean-
Ken and I have been
I-
pushing the board to
Yeah.
negotiate with the town of Poughkeepsie, where we already have an interconnection that works and used for years.
And
the town of
we
Poughkeepsie
recommend
is-
that that happens.
And the town of Poughkeepsie is, interested in negotiating with us.
Good, good.
That's interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
They're asking,
Attachments,
For
Nancy,
what?
do you have attachments? There's Schedule A, because I'm not necessarily seeing, are they the other pieces that you sent me?
No,
Okay, in a Schedule A, there's a cost estimate for the interconnection.
that would be the construction.
That would be the
That
construction.
would be more,
yeah,
is-
but for
more
the
is
amount of
rates.
water. and the-
Charge the other marginal cost provided water consumed by the other municipality, the initial estimate of the marginal cost per gallon for each municipality, including the components, including therein, are set forth in the attached schedule B1 for the village and B2 for the United Water, Wappingers Water District.
So they have schedules of these things. The village operators don't have it. The town operators don't have it. The village board doesn't have it.
Rates shall be reviewed semi-annually. Well, that's the question. Normally, Matt should not be able to enter into an agreement. The mayor, any mayor should not be able to enter an agreement like this without
Unless voted.
resolution by the village board. So, again, I don't know. We could certainly, I'll add it to my note to ask John Parch.
Well, you can ask Todd to go through the minutes.
Actually, Kenny tried to get from Carge the agreement.
Yeah, John doesn't
know on.
Well, if you guys voted on it in the board meeting.
I just sent the agreement itself to you guys, to Mary. If you can bring it up, you should get an email from me momentarily.
Yeah,
I
I sent it
Nancy
to
sent
her.
it earlier. What I don't have are the attachments, because you probably don't
I
have them
don't
either.
think we have the attachments.
Yeah,
And I think it was talked
So
about.
we don't know how much water we're giving, we don't know what it's gonna cost.
well, I didn't get to amount, but cost we do not have because they're part of the connection.
The agreement actually doesn't talk about quantities at all.
Well, that's a good agreement.
But does it say for Wood Hill Green specifically? Yeah.
Sounds
No,
like-
it doesn't say anything. There's nothing about quantities in this agreement.
We talk about they address budget adoption, municipal responsibilities, defaults, terms. The term of this agreement shall commence on the execution of this agreement by both the United Wappingers Water District and the village, and shall continue in full force and effect unless modified or terminated by a writing signed by all parties hereto or by operation of law.
So it's in effect right now.
All right.
It appears to be, I mean.
So that's gotta be in the minutes.
My reading.
I don't know.
Unless I.
We can have a recheck our minutes to see.
So if it was signed on the 24th of July, logic would indicate that it was at the
2020?
June or July, 24th of July, 2019. You would think that it would have been approved at a village board meeting sometime that July or June in order for it to be signed then. I mean, it could go back further than that. It certainly couldn't go after
I'm
that.
sorry, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have Todd do it. Minutes for the board. I mean,
Okay.
instead of dealing with John, he's only gonna have Todd do it anyway, probably.
Exactly.
How thorough are the minutes?
Well, it depends. It all depends
I mean, something like
on
this should be in the
who you're
minutes.
trying to screw or not screw, okay?
Right?
God's honest truth.
If there was a decision, the decisions are usually in there, right?
There should have been a resolution
Yes,
that
there
needs
should
to be a
Yeah,
decision.
yeah.
The village just started doing resolutions, though. Usually, if they didn't, they would have just
The
brought it
disheartening
up.
part is that Ken and I have asked this question for years now.
And have not gotten an answer.
And because it's the basis of us supplying water to Wood Hill Green, Ken and I's position has always been that we do not have the water at this point in time. And yet these negotiations went forward and nobody has any information on it, and including the town's operator.
Well, we were talking earlier, and the good and the bad of this right now, Pete, is the health department isn't necessarily ready to approve the interconnection until they understand
Why?
what water the town has available. And the town right now is not indicating their willingness to supply that information.
Right.
So for various reasons.
And another question that never been answered, if the town of Wappinger is willing to serve Wood Hill Green with water, which is within their boundary, and they have a water main on New Hackensack Road, why are we running a station on Myers Corners Road and then another crossing at Route 9 when they can just go down New Hackensack?
Not,
They're gonna go down Route 9 with that?
They have to cross underneath. They're gonna have to build a station, they're gonna have to bore underneath Route 9 to get to Wood Hill Green.
And then
Oh, yeah, at the Wood Hill.
Pump up the hill.
I say, why don't they come to?
These are questions that we've been asking for years.
and all valid questions, but and I think we should pursue them, but just to kind of get to the point that we need to address for Friday. There seems to be some question, and Ken has raised the question of, finding exactly where there's a violation or how we're in violation. But for this meeting on Friday, and Nancy, help me out here if I'm wrong, because this is a lot of information that we've been getting in the last 4 or 5 days. There's going to be a meeting to discuss the fact that we are considered at this point to be in violation because we only have one active well. One of the ways that we can address this violation is through an interconnection. Now, we don't have an interconnection with the town, and we have an agreement, but we don't have the interconnection, and it doesn't sound like we have a clear path to physically do that right now until we garner more information, which is not going to be a good answer for Friday.
Nope.
Correct?
Well, John Zarowski and KC did respond to Dan Keeler's comments and gave Dan back the information that Dan provided. And John let Dan Keeler know that the town engineer wasn't authorized to give us more information without authorization from the supervisor. So, we're trying to convince Dan Keeler to let us do our job.
Yeah.
And
Ken, if you could elaborate on what we were talking about before Nancy was here and before John was online, in terms of what you believe Dan Keeler is actually asking for.
Well, according to what KC has given us, they're asking for water information about the source.
Yeah. From the town.
Yes.
Yeah, because the town has done some well improvements. They've added wells, they've taken wells offline.
Right.
And Dan Keeler summarized it in his comment to KC. But Dan wanted us to get a summary list from the town engineer with an updated list of the wells that are serving or soon to serve United Water.
Right. So his interest is one of attempting to determine whether or not the town has the capacity in which to supply.
He just wants us to document it. He's actually said in his own words, the town has plenty of water.
Who said that? Dan Keeler?
Yes, the town has plenty of water, but he wants it documented.
So if the town has plenty of water, why would they want to go from town water to village water back to town? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. There's, as Pete said, at the trailer park in New Hackensack Road, there's a water main there. And it's beyond my ability to understand why they wouldn't just go there and get it. Why would they want to go through the village?
It's 10 times closer.
Yeah.
I mean, they can come in the back door of Wood Hill Green.
I'm not sure. It's,
Well,
Did
I don't
Mike
know.
say, not to put words in his mouth, but did Mike say anything about the town's ability to supply excess capacity?
Not on this specific occasion. Previously he did, but if there's been improvements to the well
And previously,
fields
was it
themselves, well, he said that he wasn't sure if they had enough capacity at that time. Now, I'm going back, a fairly significant time. And if they've done, completed some extra source wells, then, apparently they have plenty to give now at this point.
So, but what Dan's looking for is what can they produce versus what they are using and what they have to hold in reserve for themselves.
Yeah,
What's the
what
difference?
extra capacity?
Right. Correct. And how do we, and at this point, we don't have any ability to obtain that information, short of the town supplying it to us. Unfortunately, there are things in play here in terms of other things that the town wants, separate and aside from the water, that may be being used as a negotiating tool that this particular board has no control over. But a separate and aside from looking at what the town has to gain in terms from the interconnection and evaluating whether or not they need our water for Whitwell Green and whether or not it's more or less expensive for them to supply Whitwell Green as opposed to the village. What we're looking at here is what does the village need in order to respond and answer the question that Dan Keeler is raising in terms of another source. Right now, our options are interconnection to the town of Wappinger, which doesn't exist right now, and interconnection to the town of Poughkeepsie, which does exist. That being said, we have not had any discussion with the town of Poughkeepsie supervisor in terms of whether or not we can flip that switch back on, and if we did and we needed to use it on an emergency basis, what that rate would be for the purchase of water. I'd like to be able to go to the meeting on Friday and indicate that either we've been authorized to go and make that request to the town or
The town of Gibbs.
town of Poughkeepsie, or having made it so that at least we have something to supply to the health department that indicates we're taking this seriously, we can nitpick over the little pieces later, but we've got it in hand. So is the board supportive of at least, I think the mayor should be at least aware, if not involved in that decision or behind the decision before we go and make requests like that. But can we get a consensus of the board that that's the direction we want to go in before Friday's meeting? And we'll make arrangements among the three of us as to who might reach out to John Carge or Rick before Friday.
I can call Rick,
Okay,
see if he wants to go to that meeting on Friday at 10 a.m.
okay. Do we feel that that's a good direction to go?
Yes.
Can you also ask him about the interconnection to the town of Gibson? If he wants to have any discussion, he can talk to you, Jason, or give me a call?
All right.
Okay, that would be good.
And Dan Keeler actually suggested that, so he'll like that if that's your response.
And I didn't find that the village didn't agree with the town of Wappingers.
Okay,
It was at our July meeting.
Probably 7-0 vote, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Who would have voted no?
Who would vote no?
Mm.
But there was no, where is it? What's the contract for? We agreed.
It's a negative
Um,
declaration.
do you think Rick would have any objection if we asked John to approach Jay Baisley between now and Friday and just ask him if he would consider it?
Did you speak to
And what the
him?
rate would be.
And
Yeah, I talked to,
how we would work
Can
that
you
rate?
talk to Jim?
I talked to Jay briefly in his deli.
Can
That told him we'd like to have a sit down.
They've been making only for emergencies.
I'm
The
sorry.
town water
Right.
would only be if we need it for fires.
Okay.
But it's,
Or are we gonna use it for?
I
No.
think
for
I think
emergency.
that's a more fledged out discussion.
So who will be approaching Jay? We prefer that the municipal leaders
Yeah.
be negotiating.
Okay.
It's really not
Okay.
about.
I have fun with that,
We
Jay,
need
I
it.
have a
Yeah.
working relationship with Charlie.
Yeah.
So I have no problem doing that. That's
So-
fine.
Yeah, that's a political thing,
Emergency.
it's not
Yeah.
engineering.
Nope, that's fine.
Who? I'm
All
sorry,
right.
who's gonna talk to Jay Basin?
I'll get Rick to do it.
Okay, great, that would be great.
he's gonna do it in the next 4 days?
Well, you serve with Jay.
So who's gonna do it if he doesn't?
I'm the vice chair for Tri Union Circ with Jay, so.
Then why
unless
don't
you
you
feel-
talk to Jay?
I'm happy to, I just wanna make sure nobody else has any
If
objection to that.
you want, if you do it, I can tell Rick that Mary's gonna speak to Jay.
Got it. I'll call Jay.
We can't
That's
stop business.
That's probably better.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
If he has
call,
any questions to get over.
So it would be for emergencies only,
Please.
and what the rate would be. So if the wells need to be done, like Pete was saying, we can turn the water off and take their water.
tank projects, whatever.
What's that?
Tank projects, big fires.
And whatever.
An emergency.
What was the rate at when we got out of it?
You have to-
Make sure they understand that if the wells fail, that we can still, that we'll need water to replace. So it's $500,000 a day.
Around.
$500,000 a
Like
day?
the Dan's concern is if you have a aquifer failure and well 7s go down, well 7 and 7A go down, that we have a replacement source.
That would be the worst.
Right now, we're doing about 500,000 gallons per day, right?
Yes.
So just as a sole source replacement, that's the big emergency. That's the check mark that Dan needs to be able to check that box on, that we have a source replacement.
We don't need
That
to
gets us
address,
out of the violation.
you said that's right now. Do we have to address peak?
That is, well,
That, would that be
That's
something?
average. That's average.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
it's
much
it's-
average, you know, it'll go,
550 is.
yeah,
peak.
up and down and, but.
Well, just say it as in case we have an aquifer failure, we have a source replacement, a short-term source replacement until we get them back online. Because God forbid both VFDs go or something on those wells, or
You know, also just keep in mind that there's so much manganese in well 7 right now, it's almost equivalent to 3. So.
well, do you want to bring 3 back online? Because that would solve
No,
Dan
no,
would be happy with that too.
Nor do
We used to blend 3. Are we gonna? We can always blend them again and bring 3 back online, and then we're not sole source anymore.
I would say no, based on this letter from Slack Chemical, which everyone received, that stated that finally the manganese is really high at 0.65, and at that level, we would typically recommend oxidation and filtration rather than sequestration, which we've been saying for years.
Very sensitive minutes that meeting.
Great, thank you.
So if we had to, we could, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it. And the date on this was February of 21, so it's not all that long ago. We're currently getting complaints minimum once a week. Which, Dan Keeler is well aware of.
Anything else pertaining to this? All right, so to wrap up, Kevin, you're gonna speak with Rick. I will call Jay Baisley,
I'll speak to Rick and
and we will pull our information before Friday. Okay, great. Jason, you plan on attending on Friday?
Probably not, if I can. My kids do remote learning, and I don't like leaving them home.
Oh, yeah, well.
Because they turn the computer screens on and.
It's going to be Zoom, or is that what we're doing?
I think it is. Yeah.
If it's Zoom, I may be able to do it.
Okay, all right.
I could send it to you.
And so for the filter plant, did we get the okay that if John and Ken are good with the layout, that we can then go to the health department?
I'm for that. I'd much rather go up there and
Okay, okay. And then.
I would certainly prefer myself that Pete also review the plans.
Yeah, sure,
Well,
good.
That to me would be more important than even John and myself.
Okay, that's
So
great.
the 3.
Nancy, do you want a formal resolution from the board?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so Pete, Ken, John review.
Okay.
And when John Zarowski sets up the meeting with Ken and John, he'll let Pete know when it is, and if you're available, Pete, you wanna come by, come by. But in the meantime, he'll email PDFs of the drawings when they're ready to be shared, which should be in a week or so. Right, a week or so, does that make sense? John?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, and then the windlass water tank, just wanted to touch base briefly about that also. We put that in our discussion notes. I think that soon the village, if you haven't yet, you're probably soon getting the tank inspected again, has it been?
2021.
Yeah,
So we spoke to them, and we're just waiting for them to tell us,
okay,
when they're gonna be in the area,
okay,
and we're gonna accept, that, and they're gonna do the
okay.
inspection.
And in 2018,
Oh, yes,
you
yes.
generally,
Well, exterior, excuse me, but yeah, sorry.
okay,
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to Pete that it's also exterior.
So both.
yeah,
Yes, so also within your reports is the condition that they found the tank in at Wendless in 2018 in their recommendations. So it will say, go back to a little bit, Pete. Yeah, so the recommendations on the interior of the tank and the exterior of the tank, everything at Wendless Tank, immediate fixes were all exterior. Yes. So for everyone's review, I placed that into paperwork, and it had to do with foundation and painting on the exterior. They did find some things inside, but no immediate needs repair. It was more or less, next time you need work on the interior, they're recommending things that you would have to perform at that time.
were there discussions of sacrificial anodes
Uh,
being eaten up in 18?
No, only in Delaverne tank.
Oh,
Wetness
okay.
tank, no.
Okay, I thought it was getting into that in, when was it?
Nope. So if, in that report, which is available in Marie's office, but that will also, talk about that in the information that I have provided, yes.
In concept, I think the village generally gets the inside and the outside of the tank inspected every 3 years.
Yes.
And in concept in 18, when we looked at the result between 18 and 15, I think that there had been some change in the condition of the tank. And it was said that at the time of the interconnection with the town of Wappinger, that would be when the town would take down the water level in Wemless and resurface the tank. And then since then, it's been discussed that perhaps Wemless would be replaced with a tank that had, provides a higher elevation. And in December, Casey was authorized to work towards 30% design for that. And we're currently at about 70% of completing that 30% design. And I just wanted to put it out there that we recommend that the village plan for either resurfacing or replacing the Wemless tank after you have.
I thought we didn't need it.
You have to read the report. It's all exterior in Wendless tank.
That's what I mean,
It
so
came
why
to-
would we want to replace it if it's just exterior stuff and spend millions
No,
on a tank and raising it, and we're not even gaining much out of that?
the pressure gradient, you have, when you have fire, within the village, you have houses that don't have water.
I can say this, I know that there's some hydrants that we get less than 500 gallons a minute, and most of it's on the first ward side of the village. Downey Avenue and all that stuff is good now because they put in new water lines, but what are we gaining pressure wise and gallons per minute during a fire, even if it's a little house fire to Main Street burning?
Yeah.
Tell me what the difference is.
John, you want to provide some commentary now for this one?
When we add the 20 PSI to the tank, and ideally I'd like to add 40, but 20 PSI, I can take the hydrants that are doing 500 and get them close to 1,000.
How's that possible? How's it possible if the water main is
20 PSI is a lot of difference when we're dealing with in the bulk of the village. When you're talking 20 more PSI from 50 to 70 PSI is huge, guys. That's a huge
If you've got
difference.
a 4-inch main, you can only put so much water through a 4-inch main. You're not going to put the amount of water through a 6-inch and a 4-inch and be the same. It's impossible.
No, but you increase the pressure on a 4-inch, you can get more through.
I would think 12 and 4, you know, but anyway, or 8 and 4. I just don't see how you're gonna get more out of it without replacing the lines to bigger lines.
We do need to do that as well, and we've been going through and getting funding to do that. We've done a lot of water main replacement in the village, as Nancy has gone through.
I know. The village is in
We do it
financial
while we
stress.
can.
How have we done?
The motivation for this, the motivation for this tank was that we had a contributor that needed pressure at the top of the hill, Buckingham, and they pulled out. So we're not pushing the tank for them. But if anybody wants to be up there, and the customers that are up there now don't have water when you have a fire. So that's a violation of health standards as well.
Let's,
Huh?
I've always had water in the fire.
they're going to complete the 30%, because that's what the board authorized them to do. And we will shelf it into such time that, you know, we feel it's appropriate. But Nancy, if I can go back to one of the things you raised when we spoke earlier today, in terms of funding that the village received from EFC, the original 8 million from a number of years ago. You indicated 818,000 that was set aside or as yet unused. Was that specifically for this windless water tank?
No,
Or was it water in
It's for the
general?
interconnection.
It's for the interconnection. So we have
interconnection.
$818,000 for the interconnection with the town of Wappinger,
Yes.
which we will need to return if we do not use it potentially at some point in time.
I don't know, I don't know if that's a valid risk, and I
Okay,
don't know the limit of the risk.
okay,
What I'm saying is that when the village communicated with EFC and DOH for the water grant, it was, for a long time in originally it was Jay Podge's plan that there would be a new water tank on the east side of Route 9 to improve fire flow in the Route 9 area. Before doing the tank design for the tank, Casey said, we want to do a hydraulic analysis of the overall system to confirm if the expense of a tank would do what, you know, what the idea is. And then through discussion between the town and the village, the town was able to negotiate the interconnection. Hydraulically, the interconnection is superior to the tank because the town of Wappinger functions at a higher hydraulic grade line, and actually the interconnection is less costly. You know, in the initial plan, it was going to be $3 million for a new tank.
okay.
And so we're concerned that that the town, we think it makes sense for the village to build this interconnection because regional approach to backup water is a good thing. And we're concerned that if you don't build it, does that put some of the grant money that you received at risk? You got $3 million of grant money towards water, and that allowed the village to expand the water scope.
This grant did not close out by a certain date. The money's still sitting up in Albany, or?
Some of the money's already been drawn on. I mean, that gets into finance and legal, and I'm just the engineer. All right.
Didn't know to what extent you had.
Yeah, but
knowledge.
in the discussions, I mean, just to fill you in, contract 4 was supposed to be a $1 million job. Or a $500,000 job, and on the water side, I forget if it went to 1.5. I mean, the scope of contract 4 went up, so the money available for contract 5 went down. And at the time when that was being dialogued with the village said, you know, we'll refill the coffer if we need to when we get there. Fortunately, there ended up enough money in the old listing on DW to design the job. But you saw, when you look at the stuff I sent you, the construction cost, 800, is on a new listing. So it's already put to a new listing, but it's a commitment from the village that you're gonna build it. So you know, this last summer, when we were talking with the village and EFC and DOH for the village to get ready to go to permanent financing, we were biting our nails a little bit, wondering, okay, is this gonna be okay? And it was, and because of the timing for financing, the DOH allowed that the construction money would be coming out of the new listing. So the village could go to permanent financing on the prior, because there was a window of time when they needed to do that.
I would think so, there normally is. So would Corey have working knowledge of that?
Sure, you would think.
Okay.
And I think Jessica would know about the permanent financing, but this policy question, I don't know that anybody in the village would know the answer to that policy question of what happens if you don't build the interconnection anytime soon.
I would say, I mean, normally with EFC agreements like that,
Yeah,
it's included as part of the
okay,
data in the agreement. So
Okay.
if we've got a copy of the agreement, and if not, we contact whoever the rep was at EFC to,
yeah, it would be
Find
Brock,
out.
Brock Rogers. It would, the DOH, it would be Brock Rogers from
okay,
New York State DOH.
okay.
DOH manages the DWSRF program, and the CW is managed by PSC.
Okay. Only because in terms of, and I'm not saying we pursue anything immediately, but understanding that there is other funding out there available to do that,
Right.
should at least be considered as part of the discussion.
You know, you're right, but the village should have never took responsibility. 14, 15 years ago, when they built Riverbend, they were supposed to be responsible for that water tank. We wouldn't be here talking about this if the village didn't take responsibility for that water tank. For 15 years, Cal Lawrence was the mayor when the shady deal was made.
And now we have to figure out how to live with it.
And believe me, I, as a fire chief, when I was Car 1, I fought for that tank, fought for the interconnection, but if they ain't got the water, then I'm not for it. If it isn't gonna do anything for us, if it be emergency, non-emergency, then I think we should just back out and not do anything, especially because we're in the situation we are in the village.
Well, we are in a dire situation. I think it would be good to find out how fungible the $818,000 that we haven't used is. If it is for the interconnection and the interconnection alone, and we're not going to do it, then the funds are going to be released and go back to EFC. If there's any other parameters in the grant that allow any broader use of it, it would be good to understand that as well. Because we certainly have more than our share of improvements and ongoing issues that we want addressed. So we'll find out as much about it as we can. I'll reach out to Corey and see what he's got in terms of copies of paperwork for the agreement. And anything we've got in terms of understanding capital dollars. We have a capital fund. Is it a dedicated capital fund for any one particular project, or is it a broad capital fund for a variety of projects?
Good question.
You know, we need to know whether any of it is specifically earmarked and understand how we function with it.
And the dedicated capital fund, are you specifically talking about the DWSRF listing?
No, I'm talking about the
Oh,
capital fund, of the
internal,
village,
internal, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, because the listing, as you know, is very specific.
Right.
Okay.
How much is in that? Is it in there?
minutes,
No, the capital.
Yeah.
Of the village.
yeah, village capital fund, village water capital fund.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got you. I thought you were talking about the village.
And one more thing for you to understand, Mary, is
I
that
got
the resurfacing the wetlands tank, that's considered maintenance, not capital, so
Right.
it's not fundable through DWSRF. That's why the village talked about what to do about maintaining the wetlands tank, because in order to take that down, there was an idea that there needed to be a temporary tank, and the temporary tank was gonna cost $200,000 or $300,000 to rent the temporary tank.
Okay.
So it didn't make a lot of sense to throw away that money to resurface, so the interconnection, as soon as that would be connected, then the maintenance on wetlands would happen. If that ended up the plan, that was what the plan used to be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions concerning Friday's meeting, Casey's report?
No, I'm good.
Anything else from the operators?
Seen it somewhere.
I'm just gonna pull up the email real quick, sorry, Jim.
We have one last item, but I wanted to get through that in case engineering did not want to hang around for the budget discussions.
October. Yeah.
Well, if you don't need me anymore, I'll take off, okay?
All right, thank you, John.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.
I know.
All right, so just let us know, but, the next meeting it's the usual date, and if you want us, if you don't want us here, or you want us here, just let us know.
And we'll have that discussion here and.
Yes.
be in touch.
Yeah, we realize money's tight, so serve the way you want to be
How
served.
does your monthly contract work with your Nancy?
No.
All went.
Hourly rate based on your attendance at meetings?
Yeah,
Okay.
and for this meeting, usually John's just at this meeting, I'm not gonna bill for this.
Okay,
You know,
thank you.
I came here because I realized that the village is having difficulty and we're here to try and help.
Thank you.
And, I have the ability to spend time that I don't bill to a client.
Okay,
And so John will go for his time for the meeting and that'll be it.
okay. Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
I got you, take care.
Take it easy.
I will vote.
For the budget, do you want to stay on or do you want to go off?
I don't think, well, we have to be public, don't we?
That's one issue.
Yeah, no, I believe that the budget, I did some research last night. Have a good day, Nancy. And I don't believe we have the ability to go into executive session to discuss the budget at all, so we are remaining open.
I agree.
Okay? So we have a copy of, well, maybe that's the first copy. Does everyone have a copy of the water budget?
No.
As I'm filtering through. Do we have a copy machine?
Yes.
Water fund expenditures, water fund revenues. That's it.
Where are we meeting? Where are we meeting on Friday? I guess we could just, meet here and then go on.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you if I could come here on Friday morning.
Absolutely.
Great. I don't know if you guys need copies of this. I asked for copies of the detail of the salaries for the board members. So we have them, but we're not discussing fuel.
If not, go out in that well and drink it.
What is this? This.
That is for peak power. So what they do is they perform maintenance on the generator.
Yep.
Once a year, they come in, change the oil, the filters, they inspect the batteries,
Okay,
and that type of thing.
yeah,
So it's a general overall maintenance.
okay. Is it here? Did John just put it down here or is it here?
No, that would be there for you, for
Okay,
your
that's my
signature.
question.
Yes, where that green mark is, I believe.
Accepted by customer?
Yeah, I mean,
So
if
this is
you want
the
to
contract.
review it prior
Have
to
we-
signing, that's fine.
Did we approve the contract? Do we need to approve the contract?
Yeah, I believe that's what that is. That's the agreement, and there
Right.
should be a cost factor there.
Yeah, I see
And it
that.
discusses which one that you would like to choose. We've been choosing the once a year maintenance agreement.
Uh-huh,
So whatever that number is.
Yeah.
Now, there was previous discussion, and I believe you had said that you have somebody that performs your generator maintenance and that you were happy with that.
I had mentioned to the board a couple times that rather than have the fire company, and the police station, and the highway department, the sewer, the water, all use different people, that we should consider seeing if we could get a better price by doing.
I was gonna say, why, we don't go out to RFP for generator maintenance?
I did, I don't know what they're.
Well, why'd you have to? Isn't it under a certain amount you don't have to?
There is,
It's
but
true, but you do get an economy by
yeah,
pooling it
Yeah,
all.
sure. Yeah, you might, absolutely.
So if the approach is to consider that, then I suppose we would have to, talk to Ricky Serino and, ask him if he has interest prior to signing that.
How long is the
The only thing that I request is I always do it in July.
Yeah.
That we have an answer by that time.
Okay,
I wouldn't want it to go beyond that,
yeah,
even if it was, you know what, we'll do it this time.
right,
But
for
over
next
the
year.
next years, this is what we're gonna do, and I'd be okay with that as well.
I will
It's
tell
just
you.
I'd like to perform,
Based on what I've seen in terms of, again, my limited experience with water authority, 901 is not an unreasonable number for annual generator maintenance. So I guess I'd be inclined to sign it for this year if you're happy with them. And then
we're
talk
happy
about-
with them, I think they've been,
Yeah.
fair and reasonable. Any issues that I've had, they've been addressing it.
Okay,
Do you have a separate, like, a unit price for emergencies?
We do not. So fortunately, there has not been that circumstance. I've been able to, as an example, call Raymond in and he'd say, oh, it's this, it's that, or get it going and be able to figure it out where we didn't have to recall them. But, that could be part of the request for proposal,
let me ask the department head and the trustees, what is the protocol if I'm signing this and entering into an agreement on behalf of the board and by default on behalf of the village? Is there a resolution needed in order to authorize that?
We usually just vote amongst us.
Is the water,
Well,
is the water
that's
board
fine, but did we vote amongst us to authorize this contract?
No, this is the first I've seen it.
in the past, I believe they did. I believe every year the water board,
Anything with a contract, a proposal.
Yes.
I believe they went for RFPs early on, and a lot of these are the installer or
Mhm.
and then they just got updated costs on these people each year. I don't know that they ever went back out.
Okay. In terms of, Kenny, and I was just saying to Kenny, I have no problem based on the price because I don't think it's an unreasonable price to enter into this contract now. And, look forward, hoping that the village, and even if it's just, water department and DPW working together to, consolidate an RFP to try and get a better price. But for this year, I think we're kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball because by the time you advertise and get bids in, I'd rather move ahead with this, but I'd like at least an internal vote from the water board authorizing
You want a motion?
this agreement. Yes, please.
I'll make a motion, what is it?
Peak Power Systems Generate Annual Generator Service Agreement,
How much?
$901.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And then next year, or now, if Pete would like to, maybe we can work on that for next year.
What's that?
I
To consolidate
The quotes that I got for
I got
the
it.
sewer pump stations, I made sure to just get one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my agreement was just a one-time,
Fire department,
Okay.
it's water and highway.
That's what we said.
And that's not abnormal. I think the way we've done things in the past is you can look for a 1-year agreement, but with an option to renew for the following 2, with just a CPI increase if necessary.
which I did, and that was, again, I used the actual installer.
Yeah.
Generator, which is always beneficial.
It's gotta be, less steps to do that.
I'm sorry, cactus.
They're gonna be the most familiar, so.
Yes, and they've been very good with the warranty information and with coming down on emergency stuff. I also got I think it's an hourly cost for straight time and overtime for emergencies.
I apologize. Can I raise one more issue before we go to budgets? I was in the office on Friday. I raised the question with Jessica because she had some questions concerning the Casey Engineering bills. And I raised the question of who normally signs and approves those types of bills on behalf of the water board. And she indicated that she did it because there was no one else that was doing it. The concern is, the concern that I raised, and she agrees, is that she doesn't attend the meeting. She doesn't have the familiarity of whether or not what's being requested to be paid is legitimate. Now, Marie does in the sense that, she sees the bills come in, she probably talks to Ken and John. But things like the global Casey engineering bills, legal bills, anything like that that come in terms of authorizing whether the work has been completed. So I read through some of the Casey engineering invoices the other day. I didn't necessarily have an issue with them, but I think it's important that someone reviews them and goes through.
Why doesn't the water board sign off on all water,
I don't.
just like the trustees? Because,
Well, you are by default when you approve the bills.
well, that's funny you say that because we approve it, but we don't see them.
I don't have a problem with us making our
I
best
mean-
to see them.
I know I sat on the village board for 2 years, my significant other sat on the board for 2 years, and trustees sign all the water bills.
I don't have I mean, Kevin, you're a current trustee, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, like you said,
I mean,
we approve the bill once a month, we should be able to sign off on these bills once a month.
absolutely.
I mean, and they are our bills. But it all has to
So
fall.
who signs the vouchers for their bills?
We don't know.
The trustees,
The trustees.
the finance committee.
They used to, prior to COVID, have me review and sign with someone else reviewing and signing.
Casey's also?
They used
So
to-
why can't
Now,
we?
I absolutely refuse to sign Casey's bills.
You mean that?
Don't ever ask me, I'm not signing.
Well, that's
Right now,
when Mary's
I'll
out,
tell you
who
that.
signs off on those.
I
files.
have no idea.
Obviously, the treasurer.
I believe the
Yeah,
mayor,
it was current.
I
It's got
believe
it now.
the mayor was signing off on Casey.
The problem with signing off on bills is by law, you need 3 signatures. So,
Well, there's this process, so that the department head.
yeah,
And then the
I'm not
finance
counting the
committee,
department head.
then this finance committee
Right.
approves. or
Yeah, so you
denies.
got 4 people then, counting the department head. I mean,
Who signs off as the department head?
I would assume it was Kenny because he's-
Again, I'm telling you, prior to COVID, they were having me sign off on the bills. I reviewed, and Marie will tell you,
No,
every single one of
But
those,
not.
and
Casey's.
will unfortunately not sign it unless I know we received whatever it was that I was signing. But I absolutely refuse to sign Casey's bills.
So right now, there's space for a department approval, unauthorized official approval, an approval for payment, and an auditing board approval. I do not know who all of those people are in regards to the approval process for this voucher. I would think
Maybe Matt was signing off on them.
it's quite possible that he was, and that's.
Marie will definitely know.
Yeah, finance.
Okay,
Marie will
The
know.
finance committee signs off on this.
Hold
on this.
Okay.
So department approval, that's the process. Someone signs from the department, and then the finance committee signs off on that section.
The next line over.
okay.
And that's usually 2 signatures over there.
Well, usually it's 3 because you got 3 on the board, but a lot of times if a trustee couldn't make it hypothetically, 2 were good enough. I mean, we can do 2 if Kevin's
I
not,
don't think that's one of our vouchers there. It looks different. It looks like somebody.
it looks like a water one.
Casey,
Oh,
It is.
oh, yeah.
They
I was
always
gonna
do
say,
one
if
line.
Kevin
Supposed to
doesn't
be
want
3
to sign
lines.
off, I have
If-
no problem.
If you
They always do.
decide,
Flip the page though. He usually signs.
Oh, wait, right here. Oh, I thought that was there.
He just signed the back, and somebody would sign.
Yeah, usually there's a back. But,
I have to fill out a procurement thing for my
yeah, everybody, yeah, we all gotta do that village-wide,
so
unless it's under $1,001.
we're climbing out of COVID, we've got a new administration. I would imagine that the new administration would be open to any questions, concerns, or suggestions that we have in terms of what we want to follow as protocol. Do we want to change the current protocol? Within the confines of what we're allowed to do with municipal law.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I know Kevin wasn't a fan of doing finance stuff, I mean, if the board doesn't mind, and you and I, Mary, can do it, or just
I have no
one,
problem
I don't
with
have a problem doing it, I got the time to do it. And, you know, you pay me money every
So-
month, I want to do something.
if you decide to do that, whenever we make a purchase, I hold on to the order.
All right.
So what I was doing was placing that order or receipt of products along with that voucher and attaching.
That's what I used to do. And
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
operations committee meetings. what occurs in an operations meeting?
Just about, process, what's going on. It was really done more on the request of Matt and the engineer than it was the operators.
Okay.
That was really more of something that they wanted. And I'll tell you why, and I don't mean in any way to be disrespectful, but there was definitely a lot of conflict between Nancy, myself, Pete, John Kozak, and Matt thought that it may be a good idea that if we kind of got together more often, that things would kind of get better.
Okay. Okay.
So Pete stopped coming. He just started coming.
Well, I guess I could say it didn't work out.
Do you feel it's still a positive ad?
I mean, it could be. It certainly
It was.
doesn't really, do anything benefit-wise to us. But we're happy to report or give you any information that, anybody's looking for. If anybody wants more knowledge, we're happy to,
The majority of those meetings were.
KC.
Yeah, it was KC talking because they were there, but it was a lot about, what was going on with the Argenio projects and even before. So back when we were doing street projects, we were talking about what the status was with street projects.
All right,
So now that we're not doing any projects.
one of the issues that Nancy raised today, I don't know if you heard her when she was leaving. I mean, we all recognize and are aware that the village is in fiscal crisis right now. According to the state comptroller, we are in fiscal crisis.
Yeah.
That being said, Casey wants to work with us to ensure that we are as able to control our expenses as possible. So one of the things she indicated was that, they do not have to attend our meetings unless we need them to or want them to for some particular type of report. So if we are at a stage right now, if there is nothing going on operationally that you feel that you need these extra operations meetings for them to come, we can certainly cut down on the monthly bill by no attendance on a regular basis until we need them and set up meetings on an as-needed basis.
quite a while.
Yeah, we
The
stopped.
operational meetings.
Yeah, we stopped them prior to the shutdown, I think.
Yeah.
Just before COVID, we stopped because we just were.
They were duplication, a lot of it was duplication of what happens here.
Aren't I
Yeah.
seeing things
So-
in the minutes about operations meetings?
There,
When was the last
there's,
time?
well, there is something requesting whether or not operation and meeting, as example, 9A, and we would say, okay, we're gonna do it on this specific date.
Okay,
But one of the things was, the purpose of it also was that the water board meetings they felt were taking too long.
okay.
So what they would do is have something in between where we would discuss what's going on operationally, so that when the water board got together, it's like they knew what motions they needed to do, A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Boom, they're done, and we go out the door.
The terrible thing was, nobody from Jason a few times, Kevin a handful of times, I don't need to, but Pat Chase never showed up at an L&N meeting.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. That is
So he was
exactly
still
what-
always out of the loop every board.
Yes.
Kevin works,
I was-
so Kevin hardly made it.
All right,
Our last one was in the mayor's office.
all right.
Yeah, definitely was.
It was over a year.
So to a certain extent, a lot of this is trying to tie into, the budget, how we want to move forward with the expenses on the budget, what's currently there. Jason, maybe you and I can talk offline after the meeting about how, maybe a different approach to the bills.
Yeah.
So that we can see a little bit more detail and track things a little bit differently. That way, because Kevin, I'm sure, has enough to do with his village trustee position and this on top of everything else. But we can certainly talk about how we could work it out on the side. Now, one of the business matters we have to do today is provide our approval of the budget. So I can honestly say that I have had very little to do in terms of contribution for this. Jessica provided it to me. Jason, I understand you thank you, took the opportunity to go through it and speak with her about it. I'll be perfectly honest, I didn't, only because I was waiting for Pat to say something. I didn't want to overstep. So, we are where we are right now with a tentative budget. She does not believe that based on the revenue stream that we have right now, that we need to have an increase to the water rate. I have, subsequent to that discussion with her, pulled some water data information in terms of water sales. I have not had a chance to dive deep into it to see whether our sales numbers have changed, not necessarily from the revenue specifically, but I want to look at the water sales use, how it's changing in the customer base. If at all. If it's not, that's great. If it is shifting.
You would think commercial would use more than residential.
Well, absolutely,
So-
but has our commercial use changed?
I don't know.
And that's what I want to take a look at. I think the report, unfortunately, the accounting system and billing system is somewhat cumbersome and a little antiquated. So as a result, we're limited, I think, with what reports we can pull. We're kind of discovering what reports we have available to us to analyze the data. My approach to a revenue stream is pretty simple. We look at our expenses for the year. We look at the gallons we've sold, not the dollars we've collected, but the gallons we've sold, and base the rate on that with an assumption of a certain amount of penalty fees that are going to be collected. I don't like just looking at a revenue stream and saying, well, it looks like we've got enough, so we're going to go that direction.
And she wasn't able to provide that.
Right, and right. and
So
she-
that's why when I reached, I think we met her in the hall one day, or it might have been through email. That's why I kept everything the same,
Yeah, no,
because she didn't have that to provide me.
as I said, she and I were learning the other week, what reports we could grab through the system. And we will learn more as we go. There's, that's not a problem. I understand that. Did the operations staff have any comments or ability to contribute in this? Have you had any ability to review it?
Did not. Over the years, we really haven't gotten involved in the budget portion.
Okay,
A lot of our purchases are made, based on emergencies and, never really was an issue over the years.
okay. I mean, this is a great tool, but for me, I like month to month, seeing what did we adopt and what have we spent month to date and what have we spent year to date, so that if you wanted to drill down, if you looked at it and said, wait, you charged $10,000 to pump electric power, I don't recall signing off on a bill like that, I'd like to see the details for that line item. So, I'm familiar with my own system, I'm not necessarily familiar with the system the village uses, but I certainly think that with the monthly bills that we've got, as long as I've got a picture of what the fund is that we've charged it to, we can certainly take a look, and it doesn't have to be an intensive look, just a look on a monthly basis of these are the bills, these are the areas that they were charged to, these are now the balances that we have left in the budget moving forward. That way, when you do an assessment at the end of the year for items that you'd like to do, but we're trying to determine whether you need to put off until later, you can see whether you've got the ability to do them and balance, level off any increases by doing it within that fiscal year, or if you have to wait to move forward.
Just check it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, Marie will definitely be able to help you with that.
Oh, yeah,
And like I said, I keep all the information in regards to purchases. If, the intent is to match things up, I'm all for it.
do things come to you, do bills come to you, or do they go to the village office, or is it?
Well,
both?
the actual bill would go to Marie,
Okay,
in regards to what was purchased on an order.
Yep.
Would come to me, and then we would match that up
gotcha, okay,
with what was billed to make sure that the products billed for were actually received.
okay.
So over the years, every once in a while, we'll catch something and, immediately question it, or I'll tell Marie,
Okay,
I'm not signing it, here's why, do
Yeah.
your investigation, or the treasurer would
Yeah.
call up and question some of this.
Okay.
So that's the approach that we've always taken.
okay. All right, so I will tell you that I have one specific budgetary item of concern, and that is the salaries of the trustees. The reason I'm raising that is because, well, there's a few reasons. Number one, the announcement in the paper last week
Yeah, it doesn't look good.
indicating the village's financial concerns. Number two, right now, the way they're budgeted, they double. I don't think we should be doubling anybody's salary, stipend, whatever it is you want to call it. That's unheard of right now.
So we'll add 100 to each one. Or not.
Well,
Being that you're right, the financial,
yeah.
so we leave it the way it was.
I think the way it
I
is.
would like to leave it the way it was.
All right.
Okay,
Just because of the paper. What's going on? It doesn't look
Yeah.
good.
I agree. I think that there will be a time that things will be better. I think we'll take the opportunity to get a better look at expenditures. We've got a lot going on in terms of the plant. I'm not a big proponent of spending admin money when there's a lot of operational money that's needed. Let's see if we can get things balanced out and get as much put into the facility as we can, and we'll go from there. All
The
right,
mayor's getting paid right now?
I'm sorry?
The mayor's getting paid right now out of this line? Or is that just there because of Matt?
No, the mayor will be getting paid. The way the budget was set up this year is a little bit different, what I understand from the way it was set up in the past. They're taking a full salary that might have been under general fund, and they're allocating pieces across the different funds in order to try and stabilize the general fund a little bit more, I guess is one way of putting it, because you can't mix your water fund with your general fund. He is doing, some of his time is devoted to this, so therefore some of his costs should come from here. And she was able to do that without increasing the rates.
Will my equipment purchases go that way?
I hear we didn't get nothing this year.
That's a question I have for the, treasurer.
There we go. Anybody have anything else that they want to talk about with the budget?
So is Rick staying at $3,000? So you would be 36, because you're the chairman.
Well, let's talk about that too for a minute.
She wasn't voted in yet.
There, thank you, thank you.
Well,
I
then we're keeping the raises then, and see if you voted in. Perfect. I'm kidding.
would think that this board would have to determine the chairman unless this is something that's chosen by the village board. So-
I think it is
I think,
appointed by the mayor, but,
Appointed by the mayor's appointment.
so as of now, though, we'll keep the pay as chairman was saying,
Okay,
I think that's.
right, because it's
Yeah.
$300 a month? You get three,
Oh.
we get two.
almost to me.
All right, so you
Okay.
get three, that's 3,600, not 6,000. Our 48 went to 24. And
Okay,
then the question would be, what is the new mayor doing?
right.
Is that money that is going back into the village, or is that $3,000 gonna be us in the water?
Well, I would think he would get something because his salary is allocated here, whether it's allocated without an increase and this is just his percentage allocation for water or not, I'll have to ask Jessica.
Well, that's the thing, we had an old mayor that was, sat on his board and got paid, both for water, sewer, plus his mayor duties.
Mhm.
So I don't, maybe Kevin knows more than I do. I don't know if the mayor is cutting his pay and not gonna take money from.
Right, is it an
So-
allocation or is it in addition to?
All right, so we'll just leave a question mark there, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
for now.
yeah, I think the question, and to a certain extent, we may have to get it verified with Jess, but I think we can, here's my proposal for a resolution. We adopt the budget as presented with the exception of the expense side of the trustees reverting back to the 2020-2021 salary range. And that any excess, if it can remain with the water fund, will go into a contingency fund for operation for water,
Fund balance.
fund balance, yep. So can I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I will second it.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's 10 grand, dude. If we keep it, that's 10 grand for us, not
Right,
us as board members, but for the.
For the water budget,
10,800 would be,
Did you get that motion, John?
Yeah, the trees, the,
and that's not counting.
We're back to the way things are.
It's $3 grand a year
Yes.
for you,
yes,
actually.
and I will let Jessica know.
Make a motion.
To go and adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Absolutely.
Second.
You don't. I got $5 tonight. I got a meeting. When's the reorg meeting?
Wednesday.
What's going on?
just out of curiosity, what was the last, when was that change made?
I'm sorry.
The increase?
It's proposed for the 2021-2022 budget.
But loves that. So that was a proposal that was made?
Yes.
So it's still a good thing. So
Correct,
you're shooting down the proposal.
correct.
Okay.
Well, we're shooting down that of adopting the budget, or approving the budget for the trustees for Wednesday. So I will let Jess know tomorrow that piece has been adjusted by this board.
So there's no
No increase.
giving
for
back.
21.
Increase on-
But yeah, you're gonna have to
22.
correct it. Can we shut down since we're adjourned?